Today's journey to finding my roots is all about healing salves. This is dehydrated comfrey leaves, dehydrated or dried. You don't really have to put them in a dehydrator to get them dried. This has been infusing since April. This was pure, clear, beautiful organic olive oil when I started. Added a little bit of the vodka to it, and it's going to be very nice and potent. The recipes that I use for these are from Healing Homestead Harvest, I think is her name, Heidi Villegas over on YouTube. I got the recipe from her, and I just increase it to whatever amount I want. Let me tell you what her recipe calls for. This is whichever salve you're going to be making. You start with this base of the infused oil. 1 cup of the infused oil, which is about 200 grams. 1/4 cup beeswax. That's going to make it more of a salve. If you just wanted a medicinal oil, you could leave the beeswax out. And then about 1/2 teaspoon vitamin E oil, which is about 3 grams. That works as a preservative. And for the essential oils, I choose to use, I've got a variety here. I like frankincense, that's the vitamin E oil, wintergreen, lavender, put that in my bath every night, and black pepper essential oil is also, I may be wrong because I'm just learning about a lot of this. I believe it's an analgesic as well, kind of like the ginger is. So with whatever blend of essential oils you want to go in your salve, you need about 3%. In those measurements that I just gave you, you would want about 180 drops of the essential oil. I have that as 3% by weight. I tend to like to make my salves with a 5% essential oil. I find that I get more relief with that higher amount of the essential oils. And that 5% for the measurements that I just gave you is about 240 drops of whatever blend you want, however many of each one of those to equal 240 drops, or about 10 grams. And if you happen to do like I'm doing today and you're making this in bulk, you're not just making 1 cup at a time, I've figured it out because I made 1 cup at a time and I measured the weight and did, it's kind of like baker's math where you figure out those percentages. And so for whatever amount of infused oil you start with, you're going to take that number, and 15% of that is the amount of beeswax you want to add. 1.5% of that is the amount of vitamin E you want to add, and then I do a 5% essential oils. And now I'm going to strain the Comfrey. See how dark that is? This is going to be some really potent stuff. By the time I get all those beautiful essential oils in there, this is going to be some good stuff. I've got an aching shoulder right now, so I'm really needing some of this tonight. So we'll just get that poured in, and it's a beautiful, thick, gorgeous green. I'll show you that color whenever it's completely strained. You will be amazed at how gorgeous it is. Well, these oils ended up needing to be strained overnight. I'm going to be adding the vitamin E oil, the beeswax, and the essential oils. I'll add the beeswax first and put it in a double boiler, which I'll show you in a minute, and get that melted down. I'm going to let it cool to 110 degrees before I add the vitamin E oil or the essential oils. They're very sensitive to heat, and anything above 110 degrees is going to degrade the beneficial properties in each of those. These are natural beeswax pellets. They're very, very small. You can see how tiny those grains are. It's really nice. It helps the beeswax melt fairly quickly. And I just get these on Amazon. You know, lots of places you can get them, but that's where I happen to buy these. So I've got that weighed out based on the amount of oil I have. This is 15% by weight of the beeswax. I've got this makeshift double boiler over the eye on my stove, and I've got the heat turned up pretty high right now, but as soon as it starts boiling, I'm going to turn it down because I don't want to take any chances of this water boiling up and splattering and happen to get into this oil, because any water in this mixture could potentially cause mold to grow in it. So you want to be very careful about your double boiler. I'm going to just let this simmer until I can see that those beeswax pellets are completely melted, and I'll bring you in closer to see when they get to the point of being almost melted. I've got the vitamin E measured out here, and that is 1.5% vitamin E for the weight of my oil. And I'm measuring out the essential oils that I'm putting 6.5%, which is kind of high, but for me, I'm comfortable doing that. And I wanted to show you a little trick. I hope you can see this. When I've got these 4-ounce bottles of essential oils, and the amount of oil that I need, it's going to take me a long time with this dropper to drop it out. So I take the dropper and I lay the lid of the bottle against the dropper and I pour, and it causes the oil to run down the dropper into the bowl rather than down the side of the bottle. You know how you can pour something out of a bottle or a jar and it runs down the side rather than out into the container? So that's a little trick for that. And then I'm going to add some lavender. I'm going to do the same thing with it. And so that's all I'm putting in this today is a heavy dose of wintergreen. A little bit less than half of the amount of oils I'm putting in are going to be wintergreen. And then I'm going to put the frankincense, and I don't have my, yep, here's the lavender. And I may add a few drops of black pepper. It's been about an hour since this has been slowly melting in this makeshift double boiler. And you know, an hour is a long time. It doesn't typically take that long, but I started with about 1,100 grams of the Comfrey infused olive oil. So that's a lot of oil to heat up. And you want to heat it up slowly. You can see that the water is still boiling, but it's not boiling so much that I'm afraid the water will slosh in to my mixture. So I'm going to let this just continue to melt. And of course, I'm doing other things while this is melting. I just come back to it periodically. I'm here in my kitchen working on other projects, and I just come back periodically and give it a good stir. And I'll bring you back once I see that the beeswax has completely melted. Okay, I'm turning the heat off on this. This has been about 2.5 hours of getting that beeswax fully melted, and it would not have taken that long, but I failed to recognize that the water level in this pot got pretty low, just a very little, maybe the bottom half inch of this 8-cup measuring cup was sitting in the water. So I got some hot water, added it to it, turned the heat up a little bit, and now I'm going to be cooling it down. I'm going to be taking it out of this pot and setting it on the eye of the stove so it's lifted off the countertop and has airflow around it. And I want to show you, I've got this infrared thermometer. We're going to see what temperature it's at right now. Woo, it's pretty hot. We need that to cool down to below 110 degrees. I've got this sitting on my cooktop. I'll stir it periodically to help it cool down, and I'll bring you back when it gets to the temperature that we need to add our vitamin E oil and our essential oils. You can see that as this has cooled, it's starting to set up as far as the beeswax hardening. Let me show you. I think it's about 110 degrees or less. Oh, 111. So I'll stir this just a little bit more. I'll get all that good stuff wiped from around the edges. And this, in probably just a minute, will be where I need it. So let's stir it just a second and then look at what that temperature looks like. 108, 102. Oh wow, that cooled it down pretty quickly. You know, depending on where this light is really getting in my way, depending on where you point the thermometer. I'm good with that. 109. So I'm going to move this over to where I've got my jars ready to go. I've got that vitamin E oil measured out, and I've got my essential oils measured out, and we're going to get them poured in here. I think you can see this here. I've got, oh, these essential oils smell so good. Again, that's wintergreen, frankincense, lavender, and I did go ahead and mix a little black pepper in there. We'll get that poured in. Get the vitamin E oil poured in. Remember, the vitamin E oil is a preservative. It's also good for the skin. It's excellent for the skin. I also mill my own flour. And aside from the fact that I get all of the benefits from the whole grain, the bran, you know, the fiber, everything, it's very high in vitamin E oil. It's very good for our bodies. That smells wonderful. You can't really see the color of that very well, but it's a beautiful, beautiful green. Those comfrey leaves. Got this mixed up very well. It smells amazing. I'm going to just pour it into these containers that I've got. This is my big one here. Let's see. That one. See how that's setting up? That gives you an idea of how beautiful and green it is too. Get it all scraped out. Pour it into these little jars. Get them filled to the brim. Again, it smells so good. This is just amazing stuff. It's one of the best pain salves that I've ever used, homemade or otherwise. And I've been having some shoulder and hip trouble lately. And so I've really been needing this. I've been out for a little while and I haven't had the time to make this. So I'm very happy I'm going to be having this on hand. What I'll do with what's in this bowl is I'll just take it out and slather it on. I'll probably get this put on my shoulder here in a little bit because there's enough in there for a good application. And there you have it. Look how beautiful that is. I wish you could smell it. It just smells fantastic. Thanks for joining me on my journey to finding my roots, where today it was all about pain relief salve made with Comfrey infused olive oil, essential oils, vitamin E, and beeswax. See y'all next time.